Here will be shared the story of a race who bases victory in blood, conquest, and eventual freedom. Everybody might have heard about the Crusades, but how many actually really knows about it? The Crusades were a series of religious war initiated, supported, and sometimes directed by the Roman Catholic Church, aimed at recovering the Holy Land from Islamic rule. As a curious person, I have always been interested in history itself. When I come to the subject of Crusades, I paid special attention and research to this topic because it is very complex and interesting piece of information that most of the people will find interesting. In other words, I became a knowledgeable person in Crusades. Fundamentally, I'll be talking about three main aspects. The causes and characters implied on the start of the First Crusade, the full development of the Crusade, conclusion, leftovers, and results left by the First Crusades. The causes were many, so first, why? In 1071, after the tragic loss of the Byzantine Empire in the Battle of Manzikert, the Seljuk Turks took the Anatolia Bay and cut the road for the Catholic pilgrims to the Holy Land. Later, they will be hunted and murdered. Desperate, the Byzantine Emperor Alexios Komnenos I wrote a letter to Pope Urban II asking for help in form of Christian mercenaries in order to retake the land from the Muslims, Turks who had taken from them. Urban's convocation of the Council of Clermont in 1095 was specifically dedicated to this purpose, declaring war against the Muslim Turks in order to help the Byzantine Empire and conquer Jerusalem, with the words Deus vult, which means God wanted. The First Crusades, later known as the Princess Crusades, began. A great promise of the Church was, if they became soldiers of Christ, the sins will be forgiven. The full development of the Crusades were between 1096 and 1099. Most of the Crusaders were French nobles, who were highly trained back then in long-term combats. The Princess Crusades was a well-organized military campaign started out in late summer of 1096 and arriving at Constantinople between November 1096 and April 1097. Upon arrival in Anatolia, where they faced the invincible Turks, the armies of the Federal Europe used to continuous battles, surprised the Turks with their superior military tactics and achieved important victories, capturing Nicaea in June 1097 and Antioch in June 1098, cities that returned to its owner Alejo Comnene. They arrived at Jerusalem in June 1099. After a hard siege, they took the city in July 1099. Upon the entry of the city, the Christians committed one of the greatest massacres in history, which ignited an eternal religious hatred between Christians and Muslims, according to the chronicles of the time. In the streets and squares of Jerusalem, you could see nothing but a bunch of heads, feet, and hands. So much blood was spilled in the buildings that the corpses floated in it, and places blood reached to the knee. Nearly 40,000 people were brutally murdered in a veritable orgy of blood and destruction, all in the name of a God, a faith, and an ideal. After the defeat of the Turks in Jerusalem, the Crusades were officially over. The conclusion, leftovers, and results were many, in which we can say, obviously, the Crusade accomplished the goal of conquest. Also, the Christian nobles divided the conquered territory and founded the Christian kingdom of Jerusalem, appointing Godofredo de Bouillon as regent, who called himself the defender of the Holy Sepulchre. After the retaking of Jerusalem, most of the Crusaders returned home. This left the Crusaders' kingdom vulnerable to Muslim reconquest during the Second and Third Crusade. So, during this time, we talk about the causes, characters implied on the start of the First Crusade, also why they began. Second, the full development of the Crusade, as well as the time duration and battles. Finally, the conclusion, leftovers, results of the Crusade, and spoilers about what will happen in the second and third one. After we talk about the Crusades and Crusaders itself, we can understand what happened during this event. In conclusion, the story of a race who bases victory in blood, conquest, and freedom have ended. I hope that the information explained in this video have reached knowledge-hungry ears and be a reason to continue investigating these events.